Do you have leftovers? The voice is small and steady, coming from the dark between stacked tins of imported tomatoes and brown paper bags of artisanal flour. Adrian freezes, hand on the pantry door, a glass of water half lifted to his lips. A little girl, no more than 5, peers up at him from a crouch, cheeks pink from cold and exertion, a damp curl stuck to her forehead like a question mark. She hugs a stuffed rabbit the color of old oatmeal. The water slides hot down his throat anyway. He lowers the glass. He blinks as if the image might rearrange into something rational, a burglar, a prank, a dream. But the child blinks back, solemn, hopeful, a tiny soldier asking for mercy rations in a palace of plenty. I, Adrian clears his throat, the cool stainless steel of his kitchen throwing his reflection in fragments. Yes, plenty. She watches his face as if measuring whether the answer is safe. He crouches too, careful not to loom. The marble floor is cold through his sleep-warm feet. The penthouse hums with the low, constant whisper of the city. Every light it wears is his to dim or brighten, every window a mirror for his empire. And in his pantry, a child who does not belong to his world at all. What's your name? He asks softly. She tucks the rabbit's ear more tightly under her chin. Leela. She pronounces it like the name of a flower. He nods. I'm Adrian. She tilts her head. Are you the pantry man? A laugh escapes him, unplanned, not unkind. Tonight, I guess I am. Leela's backpack, purple with a frayed unicorn horn, sits beside her. It has a damp patch where the drizzle outside has seeped in. Adrian's mind flips through procedures, risk assessments, security protocols, then lands on something older than any corporate playbook: feed the child. Come on, he says, holding out a hand. She studies it, then slips her small fingers into his. Her hand is surprisingly warm. He lifts her gently to her feet, and she pads after him on socked feet, the rabbit bumping against her knees. He heats soup on the induction range, the copper pot gleaming like a signal flare. He finds a blanket, cashmere that probably costs more than the last month of her life, and drapes it around her shoulders. When he sets the bowl on the counter, he lifts her onto a bar stool as though she is a precious object he cannot risk dropping. She says thank you without being prompted, and he realizes, with a twist, that manners have been taught as armor. While she eats, he opens her backpack with a visible carefulness, like a surgeon entering a chest. Inside, the stuffed rabbit, whose name is declared to be Button, a half-eaten granola bar wrapped in a napkin, a worn picture book, a small plastic hairbrush with strands of brown hair caught in it, and a folded scrap of paper with an address written in a hand he does not recognize. The address is not his, just Sterling, no street, as if the brand is a compass, a lighthouse. Where did you come from, Leela? He asks, keeping his tone even. How did you get here? She swallows soup, looks at her spoon for courage. Mama said if I get lost, find the tall house with the shiny roof. The man there is kind and his name is Sterling, so I looked up and the shiny roofs were everywhere. I picked the biggest one. She glances out the glass wall at the city, a skyful of lit tiles. It was very tall. Something like vertigo ripples through him. The building is a glass crown. He has long believed he wears it alone. How did you get inside? Through a door where the food people were. She lowers her voice. It was open a little. I'm small. Of course, catering staff prepping for the foundation gala tomorrow night. His penthouse becomes kitchen and showpiece for the elite more often than he likes. There are badges, scanners, security layers, but there are also human beings with hands full of boxes and schedules that don't bend. A discreet vibration at his hip, he pulls out his phone. Ben O'Connor, head of security. The message is crisp, silent sensor tripped on service corridor, unclear source, all clear otherwise. He texts, it was me, false alarm. Then, after a heartbeat, bring up a small blanket. Also, Coco. He doesn't want to involve anyone, he knows he must. When he looks back at Layla, she's watching him with that unnerving child directness. There is something in the exact way her eyes sit in her face, the tilt of her mouth, the tiny V that appears between her brows when she is concentrating on a piece of carrot, that makes something in him clench. It is not only familiarity. It is memory, buried and alive. He clears his throat, busying his hands with the cocoa mix Ben brings without comment. Where is your mama now? Lila lowers the spoon. Maybe still at work, maybe home. We moved so it's new. The man with the shiny watch kept coming to old place. Mama said we should be boring to be safe. She says it like a recipe she rehearsed while stirring an empty pot. Do you know your mama's last name? He keeps his voice gentle, non-threatening. Mama said no last names with strangers. Layla says it in a sing-song, repeating a boundary. Her gaze flicks up again, and something in it makes the air change. Her name is Nora. The spoon in his hand pauses above the cocoa. He sets it down carefully. Nora. The syllables land like a stone dropped into deep water. The ripple circles touch every submerged thing. He remembers July sun sifting through scaffolding at a hotel site. Nora Quinn with hair pinned up against heat, pencil perched on ear, eyes bright over a blueprint. He remembers the last message, cold, unlike her. He remembers coming to her desk and finding it empty as if she had never been. He remembers his mother's cool hand on his shoulder, a voice that spun narratives like silk. Protection, practicality, legacy, Nora. Do you have a last name, Leela? He tries again, softly. She shakes her head, mouth serious as if not knowing is doing a hard job well. The blanket has slipped, he tucks it up. The locket at her throat peeks out, half of a moon in brushed silver, edges not quite smooth, as if waiting for something to make it whole. Adrian's fingers move to his own collarbone before he can stop them, to the phantom space where the chain used to rest. The sun half of that set sits in a drawer here, absurdly placed among bottle openers and spare corks. He had not been able to throw it out. He had not been able to wear it. He had been able to do nothing at all but build and build until the silence of his private rooms did not echo. Ben appears at the edge of the kitchen, taking in the scene with a professional blankness that has always unnerved Adrian when it is turned toward him. Sir? Adrian holds up a palm, a plea for discretion. We have a guest. Ben's gaze softens a millimeter when it falls on Layla. We can call the police, he suggests quietly. No police, Leela says immediately, the blanket rustling. Mama said we don't do that. Not yet, Adrian says, and Ben registers something in his tone that stops further argument. I need you to check the service corridor cameras. Quietly, and send Harper the feeds. Don't let this circulate. Ben nods, then hesitates. You sure about keeping her here, sir? She's eating soup and holding a rabbit, Ben. What would you have me do? Ben's face flickers with the ghost of a smile. I'll see what I can find. When he is gone, Harper Lynn's name lights up Adrian's phone. On it, she texts. Then a minute later, side door was propped with a crate. Kid could have slipped in. Grainy shape on cam 3, no accompanying adult visible. He sends a quiet thank you. Harper has a way of anticipating needs without assuming she knows everything. It's why he trusts her in a world built on surfaces. Leela lifts her mug with two hands and sips cocoa with the gravity of a ceremony. She glances at him over the rim. My mama had a secret, she says softly. She said sometimes secrets are heavy, and that's why she gets tired, but I help carry. His throat tightens. You sound like you're very good at helping. She nods seriously. I can pack boxes, and I can count to 100, and make pasta from the pantry if the store is closed. His laugh cracks on the way out. Pantry pasta? You just open all the doors and see what food is lonely. Lonely, he repeats, tasting the word differently than she means it. He looks around at a kitchen designed to impress and intimidate and realizes how unused it is for comfort. A chime sounds, soft but unmistakable, from the elevator foyer. A message from Ben. Woman downstairs asking for a little girl. Wet shoes, no ID. Says the child's name is Layla. Adrian's pulse jumps. He does not know what he wants the answer to be. Relief and fear are threads knotted so tight he isn't sure which would be which when pulled. Bring her up, he texts. Alone. He meets Leela's gaze. Someone's here who might be looking for you. Mama. The hope in the word is a light he wants to keep lit, regardless of cost. The elevator doors open with their quiet sigh. A woman steps out, hair dark and wet at the ends, gray coat soaked to the hem, sneakers squelching on stone. She stops when she sees the child at the counter and lets out a sound that is not quite a sob, not quite a laugh, something primitive and grateful. Leela launches off the stool, the blanket falls, forgotten. The rabbit hits the floor, thump. The woman catches her, wraps both arms around her and presses her face into the wild tangle of the child's hair, whispering 100 nothings into the crown of her head. Nora, Adrian says, and her back stiffens. She lifts her head slowly, the name tonally impossible from anyone else. She turns. Her face is older, leaner, as if long days have sanded away the softness, the bones beneath are beautiful, stubborn. Her eyes are the same. When they meet his, there is a stutter in the air, as if the city itself forgot to breathe. Relief, recognition, anger, fear, they stack and shuffle between them like cards dealt too fast. Adrian, she says, the consonants careful, as if speaking to a skittish animal she is not sure she wants to trust. I didn't know this was I didn't tell her. Layla, sweetheart, you can't just. She was hungry, he says, before he can help himself. It sounds like defense, and it is. She asked for leftovers. Nora's chin lifts, an old habit. We were okay. She was in my pantry. He hears the edge in his voice and tames it. He lifts a hand, palm open. She's safe. I'm not trying to take anything from you. He means it. He doesn't know all he means yet. Nora presses a kiss to Leela's temple, then settles the child back on the stool. Say thank you, she murmurs. Thank you, Leela says immediately, then after a pause. Can Mama have soup too? Something in Nora loosens at the child's instinct to share. Adrian ladles another bowl, pushes it across the counter. Nora doesn't reach for it. She is looking at him with a wariness born not of cynicism, but of necessity. We need to go, she says. Thank you for helping, but we don't have the luxury to. She gestures at the room as if it were something with its own temperature. Nora. He keeps his voice low, even. He takes a step closer and then stops, not wanting to spook an animal already ready to bolt. Where have you been? She laughs, short and shocked. That depends on whether you prefer the story I tried to tell you or the one your mother bought for you. Anger flares, not at her, but because of the hint. What did my mother say to you? What didn't she? Nora shields Layla with her body in a subtle pivot. It doesn't matter. It does, he says, stubbornness a lattice beneath his tone. Because you're here, and she's. He looks at Layla, who is dunking a piece of bread with an intensity that suggests she wants the adults to keep their voices nice. He looks back at Nora. Is she mine? Nora's eyes shine, the rest of her face arranged in an attempt at neutrality that fools no one who has ever loved a thing with their whole body. She glances at Layla, then at the necklace around the child's throat, then at him. He steps to the drawer and, without breaking her gaze, slides it open. He reaches past wine keys and glass tags and finds the weight he knows by heart. He holds out the pendant on its thin chain, the sun half gleams faintly, a twin from another life. Nora swallows. Don't, she says, voice raw. You don't get to make this look poetic when it was. Was what? He asks softly. Ugly, she says, brutal, effective. He sets the sun on the counter next to Leela's moon. They find each other with a soft magnetic click. The sound is tiny, inexorable. Yes, she says finally. She's yours. It is not surrender, it is a refusal to keep bleeding. It is also, in a quiet back corner of her expression, relief. There is nothing as heavy as a truth carried alone too long. He feels something like pain and joy collide in his chest. He doesn't reach for Layla because he doesn't know the rules yet. He doesn't reach for Nora because he has no right. My mother, Nora says, low, controlled, came to my apartment 6 years ago with a check the size of an apology only a rich person could write. I said no. She said she would bury me. When that didn't scare me enough, your CFO, Marcus, sent a man with a shiny watch and a vocabulary of threats that sounded like legal advice. My email stopped working. My building badge suddenly flagged security. Every job I interviewed for ended with a strange silence that smelled like your name. He can feel the fury heat his face despite the cool room. He pictures Marcus Hale, smooth as glass, and his mother Vivian, whose love language has always been exquisite control. He hears the approvals he signed without looking, the trust he placed on names that had walked beside him since childhood. Harper's name appears on his phone again. Heads up, the text reads. Board chat bubbling, Marcus asking if you're handling a situation in the penthouse. Your mother just pinged requesting a private call. Also, Cam's show woman entering service corridor 15 minutes ago had a hood up, avoided lenses. Likely Nora. He types back, keep it off the servers, print the feeds to a separate drive, and please send Ben up again. Nora's shoulders are up around her ears. She has never looked small to him. She does now, but not because she is diminished, because she is carrying so much. Why didn't you tell me? He asks, knowing even as he says it how useless the question is. He knows some of the answer already. He wants to hear her say it in her words. Because the last time I tried, she says, and the corner of her mouth quirks with bitterness. I found out my messages were going to a dead inbox. Because I had a new life growing inside me and no patience for begging men with polished shoes to allow it. Because I didn't trust you to choose me over your machine. She doesn't say mother, she doesn't have to. He takes the hit. It lands. I should have found you, he says. He isn't excusing, he is confessing. I should have torn the world open and found you. And if you found me, she replies, voice soft but unflinching, what then? Would you have been allowed to love us? Layla swings her legs, completely absorbed in balancing a carrot on a spoon. The innocence of the act feels like a benediction and a reprimand. The front door lock clicks, a sound too sure of its welcome. The air shifts. Vivian Sterling enters it like a ship cutting a current. Her hair is an elegant sweep of silver, her coat the sort of structure that suggests armor, not warmth. She stops when she sees Nora and the child. Her gaze does not flinch, but something in the tight set of her mouth loosens in recognition. She recovers before any of them can decide what they saw. This is inappropriate, she says, as if announcing weather. Adrian, we have a merger at dawn. You shouldn't be entertaining. She doesn't find a word that isn't ugly. Her look slides over Nora and Layla like a sheet pulled tight over a mess of furniture. Nora steps in front of Layla without moving her feet. It is an animal grace. Adrian feels himself align with it without asking permission from the part of him that has always deferred to his mother in rooms like this. We're busy, he says, voice level, razor under velvet. You'll have to excuse us. Vivian's smile is the kind that belongs on glossy magazine profiles. I understand a dalliance with nostalgia, but optics, Adrian. This, right now, is detrimental. He looks at Layla, at her locket catching the kitchen lights. He looks at Nora, at the way her hand rests lightly on the child's back, all the love in the world condensed into a contact point. He looks at Vivian, and for the first time in his life, really sees the whole of what she is capable of in the name of what she believes matters. She's my daughter, he says. It is without theater. It is a weight laid gently on a table that now tilts the entire room. Vivian's eyes flash, a crack in the lacquer. Adrian, she begins, warning dressed as pity. No. He steps forward, not toward her, but into the space between his past and his future. We'll talk about the merger later. We'll talk about Marcus. We'll talk about the fact that you thought our name was a license to protect you, she finishes, as if that is a kindness. To steal from me, he says, and allows the anger now because it is not uncontrolled. It is right-sized and long overdue. From her. He nods at Nora, at Layla. From all of us. Vivian's gaze cools. Be careful, she says. Boardrooms don't reward men who bleed on the carpet. The phone lights in his hand, Marcus Hale. The text is immaculate, impersonal. Reminder, keep your personal mess out of the boardroom or I'll take it there. Adrian exhales, and something uncoils. He turns the screen toward Nora and then toward Vivian, not because they need proof, but because he does. He slides the phone face down on the counter with the pendant. He looks at the pantry door, still ajar. He looks at the city at its lights, at the reflection of his own face in the glass, older than he feels, younger than he ought to be given what he knows now. He touches Leela's shoulder, a light pressure that is a question. She leans into it like answers come in warmth, not words. To be very clear, he says into the charged silence, this ends now. Vivian's posture stiffens, calculation flickering as she reroutes, red raws. She sees, perhaps for the first time, that the son she molded is not a sculpture. He is a man making his own dangerous choices. She opens her mouth for the next move and closes it again. There is no script for a child who looks at you with your own family's eyes and calls hunger by its right name. Nora gathers Layla to her side, protective by instinct, but she doesn't pull away from Adrian. Not completely. Her eyes are bright, not trusting, not forgiving, not yet, but present, open. Adrian steadies himself on the edge of the counter the way men steady themselves on railings of boats they have always thought they owned, a practical acceptance of the ocean's existence. He signals to Ben with a subtle nod only old allies read. He doesn't know the exact shape of the next 12 hours, only that they will be different than any that came before. In the reflection of the glass wall, the three of them are a fragile geometry. Man, woman, child, framed by a kitchen built for performance and now repurposed for something as ordinary and miraculous as a bowl of soup. Behind them, the pantry door stands open, a square of darkness in a room of light. a mouth that asked the simplest question in the world and rearranged an empire's answer. Outside, the city keeps its thousand conversations. Inside, a line has been drawn with the gentlest of hands. In the morning, there will be boardrooms and dossiers and collisions with men in shiny watches. There will be truths to speak into microphones and into mirrors. There will be consequences tall as towers. Tonight there is this, a small girl with cocoa on her lip, a woman who learned to keep moving, a man who has finally stopped. And there is a promise he makes without ceremony, first to himself, then to them, then aloud to the air that has held every secret spoken in this room. It ends now. The city pares itself down just before dawn, streets rinsed, windows pale with first light, the glass crown of the tower catching a sky still deciding its color. Adrian hasn't slept. He stood for a long time in the doorway of the guest suite, watching the shape of Nora curved around Layla, the child splayed in the fearless sprawl of the deeply safe. He went to his office, stared at spreadsheets without seeing rows, at contracts that once dictated the scale of his days. He made a list in a handwriting that looked younger than his face. It started with their names. When the son actually arrives, it does so quietly enough that it seems a courtesy. He hears small feet before he sees the person attached to them. Layla appears, hair a soft explosion, clutching button by one leg, blinking like a cat. Is soup okay for breakfast? She asks in a whisper that is not a whisper at all. He smiles for the first time since the pantry door opened. I was thinking pancakes, she considers. With leftovers on top, we can negotiate. They do. He discovers that negotiation means a polite allowance for 3 blueberries to every 1 splash of syrup, and that leftover roasted chicken can, in fact, be persuaded to sit beside pancakes without complaint if cut into small enough pieces. Nora appears midway through, wearing one of his white shirts, sleeves rolled up, hair braided back. She pauses at the threshold, not because she is uncertain whether she belongs there, but because she's cataloging exits and exposures and anything that could turn suddenly. I can call a car, she says. We'll be out of your way. Stay, he says, and it is not a plea and not a command. At least until we know more. Nora looks at Layla, at the way the child's legs are kicking rhythm in the stool rungs, at the pancakes disappearing like magic. We'll stay for breakfast, she says finally. After, when Layla is absorbed with the serious work of organizing the spoons by size in a way that feels urgent only to 5-year-olds and people healing, Adrian and Nora stand by the sink. The coffee is too strong, the silence is stronger. She has your stubborn mouth, Nora says, almost smiling as if it's a kindness she didn't plan to offer him. And your eyes, he answers. I recognize them, before I knew it was recognition. Nora's fingers find the locket at her throat out of habit. I owe you the shape of it, she says, and then, because truth has to be chased down or it gets away, she tells him. The lobby flowers she arranged on her last day because she couldn't bear to leave something ugly behind. Vivian Sterling on her couch, a white envelope on the table between them like a trap shining. The words, reputation, trajectory, liability, delivered as a doctor delivers a diagnosis to a patient deemed too tender for detail. The follow-up, worse, Marcus Hale's emissary with his watch that caught light exactly when it should, who traced the boundaries of ruin and called them options. Emails that vanished into a server cul-de-sac. Doors that closed with polite HR language about cultural fit, the way hunger sometimes looked like pride when she said no. I could have done something, Adrian says. You didn't know, she says, the phrase flat as a stone skipping. I should have, he insists, and the insistence is a small boy's and a man's at once. You told me you loved me the night before you disappeared. I should have known that something cracked in the story. You should have, she agrees, because she isn't interested in soothing this part of him. And I should have believed you could walk away from everything your mother arranged on her calendar without looking at it twice. She meets his gaze. But I was 27 and late and terrified, and by the time I wasn't, it was too late to come back in a way that didn't feel like begging. He nods. They are not litigating a past neither can change. They're naming it so it can stop standing in the middle of the room, blocking light. Harper arrives in sneakers and a blazer, hair twisted into a knot that means she hasn't slept either. She sets a hard drive on the counter and a folder on top of it, both innocuous enough to hide how sharp they are. Pulled the side door cam footage to a separate offline drive, she says, efficient and quiet. Also, email headers from the week Nora's account died. Packet traces route through a subsidiary relay Marcus controls. And a foundation account, Auric Endowment, without flows that smell like hush money labeled as vendor consultancy. Ben and I called a friend at White Collar. Turns out they've been nosing around Marcus for a while for unrelated reasons. Our stuff gives them what they needed for paper. Ben, behind her, lifts a finger in greeting. 2 detectives will be at the boardroom by noon with warrants, he says. We can't keep your mother out of the tower, but I can keep her out of this apartment. Thank you, Adrian says, 2 words he doesn't use often enough, spoken now like an oath. Harper's gaze slides, softens when it hits Layla. Hi, she says, crouching to eye level. I'm Harper. Layla appraises her with the quiet seriousness of her tribe. I'm Layla. I sort spoons. That's the most important job in any kitchen. It is, Lila agrees, the relief of being understood visible like sunshine. At 9, Adrian meets his mother in the lacquered sitting room of her townhouse because he is not a coward and because he wants to choose the ground for this conversation. The room is immaculate. The art on the walls is the kind people lean toward without leaving fingerprints. Vivian is at the window, watching a pair of dog walkers negotiate a narrow sidewalk. She turns when she hears his footsteps. Her face looks like it always has looked to him, a place where care and calculation are indistinguishable. You look like your father, she says, when she's taken his measure. When he was about to do something irrevocable, he takes a seat without being asked. I'm revoking your proxy over my shares, he says. Effective immediately. Well, she crosses to the bar cart, pours herself sparkling water as if that were the thing on fire. It seems we've arrived at the theater. No theater, he says, just an end. To what? She asks, and something almost like boredom brushes her voice. To protection. To standards. To the assumption that your love is supposed to feel like control, he replies. To the idea that you were entitled to decide whether I got to be a father. She lifts her chin. I decided nothing. I prevented a scandal. I kept you from a girl who would have eaten you alive with her need. He laughs, a sound without humor. She made a life out of your absence, and you mistook that for proof you were right. Vivian's gaze goes past him to a portrait, a modern thing with slick planes and not enough eyes. You can't run a company on sentiment, Adrian. I'm not, he says. I'm running it on facts. And on the belief that if we're the kind of company that destroys what makes us human to keep a line straight on a chart, we've already collapsed. We're just too tall to notice. A thin line appears between her brows, hairline cracks in lacquer. You are endangering everything we built. No, he says. You did that by building it into a cage. He stands. At noon, you'll see exactly how much. She watches him go with a face that doesn't give him the satisfaction of regret. On the sidewalk, the air feels colder. He breathes it in anyway, lets it burn clean. By 11:30, the boardroom is assembling. Glass, steel, a few discreetly placed plants that are supposed to mean breath, but mostly mean set dressing. Marcus Hale occupies his chair with the arrogance of a man who believes that a tailored suit is a second skin that bulletproofs. His watch winks, right on cue. Legal counsel flanks him, 2 men with unremarkable faces that bill in 6-minute increments. Shall we begin? Marcus asks, smooth as molasses poured over a blade. We all have a merger to applaud. We will, Adrian says at the head of the table, but not on your timeline. He nods to Harper. She plugs in the hard drive. The first exhibits appear on the screen, email headers, metadata pathways drawn like subway lines. A badge access log with Nora Quinn's credentials flipping from green to red under the label security risk. Transfers from the Auric endowment account to shell vendors with names that look like they were generated by a bored algorithm. What is this? Marcus says, not asking. Annoyance snakes into his tone, a hairline fracture. Proof, Adrian replies, of a coordinated effort to remove an employee from her position and her life using falsified reports and hush money. Proof of interference with internal communications, and a crime called wire fraud. You know the one. Marcus laughs too loudly. Adrian, you get sentimental once and the walls fall down. We kept a gold digger from mining. We protected the family name. Nora is there, sitting at the far end, shoulders square. She stands before he can smear her again with a sentence. I worked, she says, calm. The room tilts toward her because she has not asked it to. I was good at it. When I said no to a check that put a price tag on my body and my child, I became a problem. Problems at this company get solved, nicely at first, then not. The word child hangs until someone tries to make it heavy for her. She does not let them. Vivian is present, immaculate. She doesn't look down at her hands, but the slight whiteness of her knuckles advertises that she is gripping the arm of her chair in a way she would tell anyone else to stop. Any more performance art? Marcus asks, a smirk brought to a knife fight. Or can we return to fiduciary duty? Adrian looks at him as if seeing, for the first time, the exact kind of emptiness he mistook for confidence by virtue of its volume. Fiduciary duty is not a shield for malice. He takes a breath, steps into a space that once taken cannot be ceded. I have a daughter. Her name is Layla. She is 5. She is the best thing I never knew how to look for, and I will not build a life or a company that forces anyone to choose between their humanity and their place here. The room performs various forms of shock, intakes of breath, a cleared throat, the shuffle of a chair. Someone murmurs Jesus. Someone else, more practical, whispers PR. Harper lays printed copies of the dossier in front of each board member with the smoothness of a dealer in a casino that refuses to rig the game. Ben, at the door, catches Adrian's eye. He nods. The door opens again and 2 detectives step in, coats, badges held at chest level. A third man follows, a DA with the slightly impatient look of someone who has to do this dance often. Marcus Hale, the lead detective says, voice even. We have warrants to collect your devices and to access company systems under your control. Marcus's counsel springs to shape. On what grounds? Misappropriation of funds, the detective says. Wire fraud, obstruction, possibly conspiracy, depending on how generous your friends are. He says it without drama. Gravity doesn't need to yell. This is a hostile stunt, Marcus spits, color rising under his tailored tan. This is overdue, Adrian says. He does not enjoy it. He allows it, which is different. The detectives move with practiced professionalism. Marcus puts up a few more sentences that sound like obstacles but are not. His watch flashes one more time like something drowning that wants to be noticed. When they lead him out, the room watches, and the watching is a kind of sentencing of its own. Vivian is not looking at Marcus. She is looking at Adrian, and in that gaze is a calculus he cannot read. When the door closes, the room exhales in a single organism's breath. A board member with a white bob and a reputation for being nobody's fool clears her throat. This foundation account, Auric, who approved it? Silence is a shoreline, blame rushes toward it like a tide. Vivian lifts her chin. It was under my purview, she says, not apologizing but not hiding, for exigencies. And this, the woman says, tapping the dossier, is not exigency. This is rot. The board votes. First to remove Marcus pending the outcome of the investigation, then to appoint an interim CFO with enough moral spine to make the furniture tremble, then to censure Vivian and strip her of honorary titles within the foundation. It is swift because people like to feel they are doing something when a mirror is held up, and they don't like the view. After, in the quiet of his office, which is all glass and corners, Adrian and Nora sit on opposite sides of a small round table that has hosted a decade of deals. This one is the first that matters. I'm sorry, he says, and he means the everything of it, the years eaten by ambition and blind loyalty, the way he didn't knock down doors he should have counted the cost of later. I know, she replies. Me too, for not trusting you. She smiles without amusement. Trust is expensive when you've been overcharged. They talk practically because there is a child at the center of their talking, and practicality is a form of love. Where will they live for now? Here, because it is secure. How do they tell Layla the truth without breaking the parts of it that let her feel safe? They agree on phrases, simple, honest. They talk about lawyers, about custody documents not as battle flags but as blueprints for a house where no one has to worry about who gets lost. He holds up a pen. Her last name, he says. I don't care about a name on a birth certificate. I do care about the weight of names on a small person's life. Nora guides the locket chain through her fingers. Quinn has meant protection, she says softly. Sterling means exposure. Sterling also means protection, he counters, and hears the truth and the arrogance in that. But it's a wall that can become a cage if we let it. He leans forward, elbows on knees. What does Layla want? She wants bedtime stories and pantry pasta and to know which drawer has the lavender spoons, Nora says, the ghost of a laugh warming the edges. We can be patient with the rest. Her eyes meet his. Quinn for now, Sterling when she chooses, or both, or neither. Names change, love shouldn't have to. He nods, relieved by the humility built into the decision. He doesn't need to carve her into his house to know she's his. He takes Layla to the roof garden because a child should touch something that grew today. The city fans out like a gorgeous lie, all shine and noise, but up here are simple things. Basil that has bolted in the heat, cherry tomatoes like beads, rosemary that's gotten woody because no one who lives among glass tends to herbs as if they're worth anything. He kneels, shows her how to pinch a tomato without bruising it. She pockets one like a jewel. Can we make pantry pasta tonight? She asks, serious about her priorities. Yes, he says. Teach me. She slides her small hand into his. Okay, she says. Then, are you the person I can come to when I'm scared? He has negotiated billion-dollar contracts and never been more careful with his words. I want to be, he says, when you're scared and when you're happy, always. She nods as if something has been set right in the architecture of her day. Then you have to do the voices in stories. I can do voices, he says gravely. Terrible ones. That's okay, she says. Practice. The press conference happens because it has to, and because secrets distort a room's shape until even the furniture is crooked. Adrian stands at a podium bearing a logo he paid for with sleep and spine. He keeps it brief, because he understands that details belong in courtrooms, not headlines. Sterling Group is undergoing internal reforms, he says, looking at the cameras like a man looks at the ocean, respectful, wary. An executive has been removed pending an investigation into serious misconduct. We will cooperate fully with law enforcement. He inhales, doesn't soften for this. On a personal note, I am a father. My daughter is 5. She is not a symbol or a PR problem. She is a person. I am asking for privacy for her and for the women who have protected her. He steps away before the questions can swarm and become a shape that occludes the thing that matters. Vivian watches from somewhere. He doesn't need to see it to know. He hears later in the day that invitations evaporate, that a museum gala quietly adjusts seating, that a foundation newsletter goes out without her picture. Karma speaks fluent society. Evening finds them where this began, the kitchen. The air smells like garlic whispering in butter, like basil bruised between impatient fingers. Layla is on a stool wearing an apron with a fox on it, serious as a surgeon, stirring a pot with an authority no adult will dare question. Nora chops with efficient hands, a rhythm that says she knows how to feed a person with a pantry and nerve. Adrian opens the pantry door. It swings on its hinges with the same squeak he's never heard before because he never listened for it. The shelves are still proud, but they feel different now, less museum, more cupboard. Layla peeks up over the rim of her pot. Do you have leftovers? She asks, a grin sneaking around the edges of her mouth because some jokes deserve to be told twice. He looks at the bowls arrayed, at the bread warming in the oven, at the locket, sun and moon, resting on the counter between the salt and the pepper like something that belongs in the everyday. His eyes sting unexpectedly. We have more than enough, he says. They eat on the floor, cross-legged on a rug too expensive for this, which is why it feels like justice to use it this way. Layla decides that pantry pasta requires a certain number of cherry tomatoes per bite and enforces the rule on all participants. Adrian tells a story with voices that are, as promised, terrible. Nora laughs, the first laughter that isn't a defense he's heard from her in 6 years. The city hums, unconcerned with their small, shining circle. Later, when Leela sleeps with button tucked neatly under her chin, and the moon and sun locket hanging unbroken from the bedpost because some talismans need to rest too, Nora stands by the window with him. The reflection shows them as silhouettes and as real at once. I don't know how to do this, she says. I only know the parts I learned by running. We'll learn by staying, he says. She turns, looks at him in a way that sets off something in his chest that is both ancient and newly minted. Don't make promises you can't keep. I won't, he replies. I'll make the ones I can and keep them. He looks at the little person sleeping, the city, the ghost of the man he was yesterday. We'll build something smaller than what I thought I wanted. Truer? Names are heavy, she says, almost to herself. We'll make sure ours means shelter, he answers. The tower breathes. Downstairs, people who have always thought they owned the night begin their careful dinners. Upstairs, in the kitchen where hunger introduced them and truth sat down uninvited, a family writes a new recipe in the language of small, ordinary, shining things. The empire will rearrange itself. The balance sheet will learn the shape of a different kind of profit. In the room that was designed to impress people who confuse performance with worth, a man, a woman, and a child learn to be enough.